the steep rise in fuel costs have affected all airlines worldwide, and naturally also jet was affected by that. The whole aviation industry in India has lost about $1 billion in the financial year FY08, which ended last March 08. In this financial year, one can expect a loss of all airlines together in India of about $2 billion US dollars. And this is mainly attributable to the high increase in fuel cost. We as Jet Airways will have a much better performance compared to the industry average, but also we have been, let's say, affected by the high fuel price, specifically from March onwards. There was a steep rise in fuel prices, which affected our bottom line. Approximately our cost base on a monthly basis has gone up by about $50 million US dollars because of the high fuel price. And if you analyze it, it's anywhere between 500 to 600 million US dollars, which additional costs we have incurred due to the high fuel cost. And the problem is compounded in India by the fact that the fuel price in average is much higher than compared to what, for example, in other benchmark countries you pay, because we have high taxes, excise duty on the fuel, so it's about 60% more expensive than in other countries of the world. And fuel cost account for about 45% of the operating cost of an airline in India. So all airlines together work now to let's say within the Federation of Indian Airlines, ask the government to give some relief on the tax side. And also what we are doing, we have streamlined certain operations. Most airlines in India have curtailed actually production because of the high losses which are incurred to the tune of about 15%. So loss-making routes have been eliminated. And due to this increase in fuel price, it's the first time in 5 years that actually air travel has gone down in India in the last months. But there's no other way out. If the costs are that high, we have to curtail production. But we see now when the upcoming high season comes that we can increase production again back to the old levels.
How is Jet Airways coping with the economic slowdown and high fuel prices?
You have to work on all areas. Basically, it is look at revenue generation, eliminate loss-making routes, and go through every cost item and try to reduce costs. So we have a cost-saving program in place, which will save us about $50 million in this financial year, and should go up to $70–80 million in the next financial year. And this does not include any savings on distribution cost. So we are also working very actively to reduce our distribution cost. You have two major elements in the distribution cost. These are the GDS cost. This means Global Distribution System cost, which are about $4 per passenger, which the global distribution companies are charging. And we are in active negotiations to reduce that figure. And you can imagine when you have something like 11 million passengers, which we have, even $1 reduction, it's quite an amount of money. And the other element in the distribution is the commissions we are paying to agencies. Airlines in India have announced to the travel agencies that they will go to a zero commission scheme, which is something which is done in, let's say, in the developed parts of the aviation industry, let's say in North America and Europe, and also in India. We feel now is the right time to do it, and we will save agency commissions, and the agencies will charge a certain transaction fee to the passengers. But we're in active discussions now with the travel agencies to find a, let's say, common platform how this transaction fee is charged. Maybe put it even on the ticket for a certain period of time. And so these are the major elements of us on the cost-cutting side. And on the route rationalization, we have reduced our domestic capacity on a temporary basis by about 15% and cut off let's say, the weakest loss-making flights. And most probably we'll reintroduce then with the upcoming peak season in September, October. On a long haul, we have not we executed fully our expansion program, so we are committed to this expansion program, which takes us up to 22 wide bodies by October. We have already 20 wide bodies in operation, and we've built it up in a very short period of time, and giving us now a global network. So this is an investment in the future. We have not cut back, and also have no intention for the time being to do so.
It's been reported that more Indian middle-class travelers are turning to rail. Do you think the trend will last?
We had a phenomenon in the last 3-4 years that with the emergence of so-called low-cost carriers, which are actually low-fare carriers, but their cost basis was not that low as it turned out. There was relatively low fares have been charged, which came close to the rail fares. And this had the effect that we had traffic growth of every year 30 to 40% in the last 2-3 years. And a lot of this were rail passengers. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, it turned out that with that kind of fares, the whole industry was going into deep losses. You had this $1 billion in this financial year FY08. And this was due to really irrational pricing. And now carriers had to increase fares. Every carrier naturally does this individually, but they were all forced to increase fares. And so you see a disparity now between what the airfare is and what the railways are charging. For that reason, certain passengers who flew then went back to trains. And I think if the cost basis is as it is, we simply cannot afford to offer train prices. For that reason, we will come into a phase now where you have a slower growth, but nevertheless it will be a growth which is much higher than in other regions of the world. And but with a growing middle class and more Indians can afford more and more, I think you will see also a lot of new people flying. But but you will see this, let's say, extremely high growth rates of 30-40% again, in my opinion.
What do you think is the outlook on aviation in India? What are some of the opportunities and challenges?
India is, if you take China and India, these are the two economies growing fastest in the world. And even in this environment now where there's an economic slowdown in major markets in the world, also we have seen some slowdown in India, but nevertheless we are talking here about the 8% growth rate of GDP. So this itself is a good indicator that air travel will continue to grow. So there, I see good growth perspectives, but it will be, let's say, you can take a multiplier of, let's say, 2 times GDP, which would give you something like a 15% growth. I think that would be a reasonable growth rate for the innovation. That's the positive side. On the challenges, you have the very high input cost structure. As I mentioned, the fuel price is one of because of the high taxes. You have a lot of infrastructure constraints at the airports, terminals, landing, parking bays. Then air traffic control is congested in the major metro airports. So and this aids also the cost burden because of ATC delays and all that. So these are I would say the challenges ahead in innovation. It has been addressed. The government has initiated a program to upgrade major airports, and the major airports have been privatized, Bombay and Delhi, and work is going on. So I think in 2 years we should have a good infrastructure in place. In the meantime, 2 private airports have also opened, greenfield airports have opened in Bangalore and Hyderabad. So infrastructure is getting upgraded. So overall, let's say the prospect is good, but we are going through, let's say, some tough time now, all airlines in India, but in the medium term the prospect is good.